From the first book of Christ for Atheists, this is chapter 16, China, Exploring Foreign Lands. Trip to China, October 4 to 14, 2016. This book is available through YouTube, Facebook, Spotify, or Instagram. You can also purchase it through Amazon for $20. I wrote some travel stories into this book as I find that that witnessing other people and cultures provides me with a realization that we all have incredible histories, not just Mother England. As a young student, we were taught that the British Commonwealth was the be-all and the end-all of world societies. The information below is meant to put more historical detail into what we saw. Upon researching the stops we made in our all too brief visit to China, it is very clear that this information just scratches the surface of a culture that not only goes back centuries, but has an impressive recorded past that few, if any, civilizations can compare to. Started October 16th in Beijing. Population is 21.7 million. The Temple of Heaven, Chongguan District in Beijing. The Ming Dynasty from 1368 to 1644, and the Qing Dynasty of 1644 to 1911 held the heaven worship ceremony here. As the sons of heaven, it was forbidden for an emperor to have a larger premises than the earthly dwelling dedicated to heaven. That is why this temple is larger than the Forbidden City. It is the largest and most representative of existing masterpieces among China's ancient sacrificial buildings. The next day, Summer Palace, Hayden District in Beijing. Started in 1750 as a luxurious royal garden for royal families to rest and entertain. Later, it became the main residence of the Qing Dynasty at the end of their reign. This is the largest and best preserved park in China. It is a UNESCO World Heritage Site and features primarily Longevity Hill and Coming Lake. There are over 3,000 man-made ancient structures, including pavilions, towers, bridges, corridors, etc. The four parts are the court area, front hill area, rear area, and lake area. The English and French destroyed the garden, but it was reconstructed in 1888. In 1900, Britain, France, Germany, USA, Russia, Italy, and Austria destroyed the garden once again. They were called the Eight-Power Allied Force, and the moral reason for the invasion was to protect the missionaries, while their real motive was to force the Chinese to accept one-sided treaties and sell unwanted goods to the Chinese, including opium. The Boxers stood up to the Europeans, but in the end, China had to endure the most humiliating time in their history, which was at the beginning of the 1900s. We saw scrapings off sculptures as gold was removed with knives by soldiers as they looted and destroyed this garden paradise. Empress Dowager Cixi controlled the Chinese government from 1861 until her death in 1908. She embezzled Navy funds in order to reconstruct the Summer Palace in 1888 so that she could live the rest of her life here. Being a concubine of the Xianfeng Emperor, she gave birth to a son, Jiangchun, in 1856. Upon Jiangfeng's death in 1861, her son became Emperor Chongzhi, and she became the Empress Dowager, which allowed her to control China. After her son died in 1875, some say by her hand, she installed her 5-year-old nephew as Emperor Guangzhou. Her nephew tried to assert power by the time he was 26 and attempted to assassinate her. She had him put under house arrest for supporting radical reformers who were considering Western forms of government. The 100 Days of Reform was an imperial attempt at renovating the Chinese state and social system after the Sino-Japanese War of 1894 to 1895. China lost this war, and it resulted in outsiders looking for concessions by Western imperialist powers and Japan. After the Boxer Rebellion and the invasion by the eight-power Allied force, Cixi returned to Beijing with Xian, where she began institutional changes, including banning foot binding and turning China into a constitutional monarchy. Her connection to the garden and the countries that destroyed it, not once but twice, is an example of how history plays out largely based upon criticism, circumstances, and greed. It was strange that her nephew would die only one day before her death. In 1988, they exhumed Jiang Zhu's body and discovered that Jiang Zhu had died from arsenic poisoning. Very interesting. Tiananmen Square, the gate of heaven, peace, center of Beijing. When we think of Tiananmen Square, immediately what comes to mind is the massacre of hundreds, if not thousands, of students. Everyone remembers the young student that stood in front of a row of tanks the day after the slaughter, stopping them in their tracks, only to be whisked away by fellow students, never to be known or heard of again. Leader Deng Xiaoping was credited with guiding China out of the Cultural Revolution and being the architect of a brand new kind of socialism by adapting market economy practices and allowing foreign investment. He opened up the global economy and encouraged private competition, resulting in China becoming one of the fastest growing economies in the world. He will always be remembered, however, for making the decision to use armed suppression on the unarmed protesters. He retired in 1989, a year after the massacre. Protests were occurring in all other centers around China, but in an iron fist way, the communist government put down the opposition, leaving a scar on China that outsiders will always see and remember. When 1 million people could gather here at times at celebrations, knowing what happened, here gave me an eerie feeling that the souls of those students lingered in our presence. The gate of Tiananmen Square was built in 1415 by the Ming dynasty on the north, separating it from the Forbidden City. The square contains the monument to the people's heroes, the Great Hall of the People, the National Museum of China, and the Mausoleum of Mao Zedong, founder of the People's Republic of China. The square was built in 1651 during the Ming Dynasty and has been enlarged by 4 times its size in the 1950s by the ruling communists. The Forbidden City, the center of Beijing. This was the Chinese Imperial Palace from the Ming Dynasty to the end of the Qing Dynasty of 1420 to 1912. With 9,999 rooms, it houses the Palace Museum now and was the ceremonial and political center of Chinese, for almost 500 years. It was built between 1406 and 1420 and consists of 980 buildings on 180 acres of land. In 1987, it became a World Heritage Site and is listed by UNESCO as the largest collection of preserved wooden structures in the world. Over 14 million visitors visit the museum, making it the most visited museum in the world. When you see Chinese artifacts in other parts of the world, you will know that they were looted by invaders over the years, and you should make comment to the museum administrators that they have a moral obligation to return these items to their rightful owners in China. In October 8th of 2016, Ming Tombs, foot of the Xianshu Mountains. The sacred way is the approach to the Shangling Tomb. From south to north, there is the stone tablet archway, the Great Red Gate, the tablet pavilion, ornamental columns, stone figures, and Lingxin Gate. 13 tombs house the emperors starting from the Zhuge, the Yongle Empire, 1402 to 1424. He is called the first emperor of the Ming Dynasty, but the reign goes back to 1368 with Hongwu Emperor, 1368 to 1398. His son, Kang Emperor, Zhu Biao, 1368 to 1392, asked his father, Why do you banish or kill so many ministers and generals who aided you in forming the Ming Dynasty? Hongwu Emperor replied, "They are like thorns on a vine," and not trusting that his son would do it himself, he kindly killed them for him. His belief was that they might try to seize power after the first emperor died. With the general Confucius taught Jiu Biao dying prematurely, his uncle Zhu Yumin took the throne upon the Hongwu emperor's death. In contrast, Jianwen means establishing civility, where Hongwu, the first emperor of the Ming Dynasty, name means vastly martial. The Chinese use common names with their emperors at the end, often instead of their given names. Jianwen Emperor, for example, had a given name of Zhu Yumin. Within 4 years of taking the throne, the deceased Hongwu Emperor's son, Yongle Emperor Zhu Di, forcibly took the throne, and some say killed Jianwen Empire, others say banished. In spite of what might appear to be a rather violent way of changing power, the Ming Dynasty is considered to be one of the greatest eras of orderly government and social stability in human history. The Ming Dynasty was the last imperial dynasty in China to be ruled by the majority ethnic Han Chinese. The Great Wall. The Yunnan Great Wall, 61 kilometers from Beijing Airport. The wall's official length is 21,196 kilometers long from the Zhongduan Pass in the west to Hushan Mountain in Liang in the east, and was built by 6 separate dynasties. Its length is contradicted by different sources, but it can be concluded that it is huge. Yangguan is the nearest section of the wall from Beijing. The wall cannot be seen from space, although it is over 1/2 the circumference of the equator. Our climb from section 8 to 12, where we reached the end, was a tough climb, but we rewarded ourselves with a medal with our names on it. Anyone who took one step on the Great Wall was entitled to the medal, but it will not qualify any of us for the Olympics. In 221 to 207 BC, during the Qin dynasty, the wall began. It was mortared with glutinous rice, lye, and mud. The Ming dynasty made the most significant expansion of the wall using brick and featuring many tall watchtowers. While peasants were expected to work for a given time for free, many of them died there. Instead of having them returned to their homes, as was tradition, they were thrown into the rubble used to construct the wall. The Great Wall is called the longest cemetery in the world, and it is estimated over 1 million people are buried inside it. Chinese peasants believe that their souls cannot rest until they return to the land of their ancestors. For 1 million Chinese, this will never happen. October 9th, Hutong Tour, downtown Beijing. Hutong's development began in the Yuan dynasty of 1271 to 1368 during Mongolian control land, were built in concentric circles around the Forbidden City, which was traditionally the center of Beijing. The wealthier you were, the closer you were to the center, with their homes being built in the east and west, while laborers and merchants lived further away and built in the north and the south. Hutong means water well, and were built facing south to attract more sun. Therefore, these narrow streets were built east to west. Many Hutong communities have been destroyed in favor of condos and apartments on wide boulevards. Public washrooms and showers are the only option in a Hutong area. The Chinese government has designated some communities as protected areas, such as the community that we visited that has a drum tower and a bell tower. Our pedicab was operated by Rick Shaw, who took us around the Hutong, after which a local family prepared our lunch. The Hutong homeowner, Chow, played an ancient Chinese string instrument, and his wife, Mine, prepared a hot lunch for 16 of us using nothing but a wok while we walked around the block. Chow showed our group how to make dumplings with hands-on instructions. A kindergarten was within the community, and the children and adults seemed to be quite content living in conditions that we are not used to. Our guide, Wilson, lives in a condo by choice, while his father chooses to live in a Hutong. We stood in the doorway of the house where Mao Zedong's great school teacher lived. This was a tour that we will cherish for a long time. Lama Temple, Yong Lamasery, Harmony and Peace Palace, Lamasery Northeast Corner, Beijing. Built in 1694 by the Qing dynasty, it is the largest and most perfectly preserved lamasery, defined as a monastery for lamas in China. It became the national center of Lama administration in 1744 after housing a prince briefly who would become Emperor Yongzheng. It is an active Buddhist center with many men reading and going about their business. From the south, you enter a yard with a screen wall and 3 gates. Entering north from the gateways, we saw a wide, straight road used for carriages of the emperors and their wives. North of here is the Gate of Peace, declaration which comprises 3 large archways. North of this is a second yard containing a drum tower on the west and a bell tower on the east. In front are 2 octagonal stele pavilions. Beyond is the Hall of Heavenly Kings, and leaving the hall you see an ancient copper cooking vessel made in 1747. North of this is an odd-shaped hill called Jiu Hill, a sacred place built in the middle of a pool and represents a place where all Buddhists are eager to go. The Hall of Harmony and Peace is the main palace where inside are 3 bronze Buddhas and 18 disciples. Statues north of this hall is the Hall of Everlasting Protection. Next is the Hall of the Wheel of the Law, and lastly the Pavilion of 10,000 Happiness. Seeing so many splendors and an active monastery where pilgrims would kneel and pray was very delightful, if not perhaps a little overwhelming due to the vastness of the complex. Buddhism came to China during the Han Emperor 206 BC to 220 AD and is the oldest foreign religion in China. The Chinese merged Buddhism with native Taoism and folk religion. Modern Chinese Buddhists are generally Taoists as well. Enlightenment is what Gautama Buddha taught after studying Hinduism and not being satisfied. He created the 4 Noble Truths and taught that following the Noble Eightfold Path is the means to accomplish this. Our guide on the Hutong tour had a near-death experience that changed his life as he immersed into a spiritual direction, which he believes makes him a better and more fulfilled person. He gave some of us a book with chapters such as The Buddha's Discourse on Natural Principles for the 10 Good Ways of Acting, Mentally Induced Responses according to Tao Shang, The Principles for Youngsters, and an Imperial Edict from Yongzheng. I read the book and I feel that it gives direction to those that don't yet have a life path to follow. Olympic Park, just north of Beijing. The 2008 Olympics occurred here and covers 11.59 square kilometers. The Olympic Forest Park is seen as the terminal point of the Beijing Central Axis. It is divided by the 5th Ring Road into 2 zones, the Southern Garden and the Northern Garden. Outside the south gate of Forest Park are the 5 sightseeing towers arranged in the pattern of 5 Olympic rings. This is where we viewed the Olympic Park. The central section includes the Olympic Village, the National Stadium, they call it the Bird's Nest, Aquatic Center, a water tube, Convention Center, Indoor Stadium, and the China Science and Technology Museum. The southern section includes the former National Olympic Sports Center, used for the 1990 Asian Games. In this section is the Chinese Ethnic Museum, which has a collection of the 56 ethnic groups in China. With novel design concepts, magnificent landmark buildings, and splendid natural landscape, the park successfully integrates sport and nature, providing a model for the mutual development of man and nature. With so much to see and so little time to spend, we didn't have enough time here to do it justice. October 10, city of Xi'an, municipal population 8.5 million, the ancient city wall. It was the capital of Western Zhou dynasty from 1046 BC to 1771 BC. Qing dynasty 221 BC to 206 BC. Qin state got 221 BC to 9 BC. Western Han dynasty 206 BC to 9 AD. Jing dynasty from 9 AD to 23 AD. Eastern Han dynasty 190 AD to 195 AD. Western Jin dynasty from 312 AD to 316 AD. State of former Xiao 318 AD to 329 AD. State of former Qin 351 AD to 385 AD. State of later Qin 384 AD to 417 AD. Western Wei dynasty from 535 AD to 557 AD. Northern Zhao 557 AD to 581 AD. Shu dynasty 581 AD to 605 AD. Tang dynasty 618 to 684, then 705 to 904 AD. Phew, that's a lot of different dynasties. All in the city of Xi'an Municipal, ancient city wall. It should be noted that dynasties just didn't transition from one to the next without years of conflict and bloodshed, much like our liberals and conservatives. Specific years include transitions from one dynasty to convenience, for convenience. Not all those that controlled this walled city were dynasties. Jiang Huang, first emperor of the Ming dynasty, captured this city in the 14th century, long before the Ming dynasty existed. A hermit told him to build higher walls to this city, which he heeded. Currently the walls are 40 feet tall, 4 to 46 feet wide at the top, 50 to 60 feet wide at the bottom, and covers 8.5 miles around. It has a moat and 98 ramparts, built to allow arrows to reach halfway to the next rampart. As the ramparts extended out of the wall, the soldiers could shoot at the enemy from behind as they tried to climb the walls. City gates were built complex, as the enemy of the day couldn't break through easily. Interesting and very Chinese names were given to the gates. East is called Eternal Joy, West, Harmony, Peace, South, Eternal Peace, North, Forever Harmony. This is the largest ancient military defensive system in the world. You could rent bicycles or electric cars to go around the city. Like everything we had visited so far, tourism flourished and history over centuries abounded. This was a lovely place where we were able to walk along the wall and take in the sights. Little Wild Goose Pagoda, 1 kilometer south of Xi'an City. It is located inside the Jianfu Temple, dedicated blessing, and is one of 2 famous Buddhist pagodas erected in the Tang Dynasty about 1,300 years ago. Small Goose Pagoda was built in 707 to 709 AD and named after its predecessor, Big Wild Goose, 5 kilometers away. No practicing monks were present at this pagoda, and our guide suggested it as being because the communist atheist influence that has reduced the number of religious people in China. The Tang Dynasty Show. Adjacent to city center, this show presented historical records and folk legends about the Tang Dynasty. It displays the court life and social customs from more than 1,300 years ago through classical instruments and dancing. It was full of talented performance, an amazing show indeed. The Banpo, this is on October 11th, Banpo Museum, eastern outskirts of Xi'an. The Banpo half slope was a matriarchal society that existed 6,000 years ago between 5,000 and 3,000 BC. A matriarchal society has property passed down through the maternal line on the death of the mother, not the father. The artifacts uncovered at Banpo were typical of the Neolithic matriarchal community, which included 400 sites of this type, this being the largest. All were built around the Yellow River Basin. The discovery in 1953 found parts, a living area, a pottery making area, and a cemetery area. There are 46 dwellings discovered, 2 domestic animal pens, and over 200 storage pits. There were as well 174 adult tombs, 73 burial jars for kids, 6 pottery making kilns, and many production and domestic tools. There are matriarchal societies in existence today, the most well-known being the Jews in the kibbutz, but there are 2 in South America, there are 9 in Asia, 8 in Africa, 5 in Australasia, 4 in North America, the Iroquois, Navajo, the Tlingit, and the Hopi, 1 in Oceania, and 2 in Europe, Danes and Greeks, and 6 societies in India. Terracotta warriors. 40 kilometers east of Xi'an. The terracotta warriors are one of the greatest archaeological finds in history. In 1987, it became a World Heritage Site and is considered the 8th wonder of the world. It was discovered in 1974 by farmers digging a well. The 8,000 warriors were made of yellow earth clay mixed with quartz, mica, and feldspar. They were put in trenches in battle positions facing east to confront the enemies conquered by Qin when he unified China, and are all uniquely modeled after soldiers in Qin's army, along with authentic swords, spears, and bows. In 246 BC, at the age of 13, Qin Shi Huangdi became king, and by 221 BC, he had unified China under one authority and declared himself China's first emperor. Interestingly, his mausoleum was started the year of his becoming king in 246 BC, which would suggest that he was under the control of handlers. It took over 700,000 men, which DNA has shown came from all over Asia, including Japan. Sadly, all of the workers, including the skilled workers of the authentic weapons and sculptures, were put to death to keep the location of the mausoleum a secret. Weapons that were discovered remained sharp and shiny even after being buried for over 2,000 years because they had a protective cover of chromium dioxide, a process only rediscovered in the USA in 1937 and in Germany in 1954. This is an example of what happens when the next regime destroys what the previous had attained. Even the infamous Qin eliminated the 100 schools of thought which incorporated Confucius and other philosophers in favor of legalism. This became the endorsed ideology, which meant follow the law of the land or be punished. For owning the Book of Songs or the classic of history, Qin had 460 scholars burned alive. It would have taken many gifted people to make the changes that Qin made in his short lifetime of 50 years. His mind must have been planted with much of what he thought. He feared death and wanted to make sure he was ready for the afterlife. He sent thousands out to look for an elixir that would make him live forever. He had a group of alchemists killed when he found out that they had fooled him. He was a brutal killer, which stood him well as a conqueror. Administration. In addition to his reputation as a brutal murderer, he is recognized for his administrative reforms, which took China from feudalism to administrative units, including commandeers, districts, counties, and 100 family units. Appointments were based upon merit rather than hereditary rights. Economics. He standardized Chinese units of measure, such as weight, measures, and currency. He developed an extensive network of roads and canals connecting the provinces. Script was unified, meaning one language for all of China. Philosophy. Important in China, Qin followed the school of 5 elements: earth, wood, metal, fire, and water. If you take all of his accomplishments in 37 years of power, it is noticeable how little appreciation is made for the craftsmen, workers, strategists, economists, and planners that molded China. Very few names are mentioned in history, and many who helped were killed by the very emperor who benefited from their efforts. Sad. October 12th, Suzhou City. Population is 10.4 million. It's 100 kilometers northwest of Shanghai, Tiger Hill Park. This city is known for its natural beauty as well as historical sites. The hill looks like a crouching tiger. Famous Song Dynasty poet Xu Si said, "It is a lifelong pity if having visited Suzhou, you did not visit Tiger Hill." It was a beautiful spot where we saw an amazing show with lovely costumes, including wonderful singing and dancing. Originally, the pagoda here was 15 stories high, but an earthquake in 1556 reduced it to 13 stories. More earthquakes since have not dislodged this tall structure. A lean, much like the Leaning Tower of Pisa, exists that has been shored up with extra piles and supports to keep the structure from eventually collapsing. Lingering Garden, occupying 5.8 acres, located outside of Changmen Gate, it was built in 1593 by a retired official named Zhu Cai during the Ming Dynasty. It was in private hands until 1930, when it fell into disrepair and was almost demolished. They got sponsored the repairs and opened it to the public. This garden seeks to create stunning natural landscape within limited space. October 13, the Grand Canal Cruise, 1,776 kilometers long. It is the longest man-made waterway in the world. This too is a UNESCO World Heritage Site. The homes along the portion that we toured were old and not particularly well maintained, as it is expected by the government, which wants it to maintain its ancient appearance. The canal is for commercial and tourist traffic only, so those fortunate enough to live on the canal cannot use it as a means of getting around and must rely on the front road. People who live on the canal use it to wash their clothes as well as vegetables, as we witnessed. Shanghai, population 24.1 million, the largest city in China, the Bund. The symbol of Shanghai for hundreds of years, it is on the west bank of the Huangpu River and winds for 1,500 kilometers. The Bund displays 26 various buildings of different architectural styles, from Gothic, Baroque, Romanesque, Classicism, and Renaissance. In 1846, Shanghai became a trading port and a British settlement, which resulted in it becoming a major financial hub of East Asia. The Bund became the center of the city's politics, economy, and culture, where consulates of most countries and many banks, businesses, and newspapers were built, resulting in foreign architect. Later, the communists converted the area to use for their own offices. In the 1970s and 80s, they gradually returned the buildings to their former uses, and by the 1990s, attempted to create a tourist area, which opened in March 28, 2010. While we were there, brides in wedding dresses posed in the area called Lover's Wall, and photos were taken of them with their grooms. Taking a night cruise along the river provided us with the spectacular colors of the night lights shining from the stunning decorated buildings. Special show some of our troupe went to. The Peking Opera, a masterpiece of China's original culture. The Legend of Kung Fu with storytelling, acrobatics, modern dance, and music. The Era Show, similar to Cirque du Soleil. The maglev train between Shanghai and the airport traveled at 431 kilometers an hour and taking only 7 minutes and 31 seconds to travel 48 kilometers. Another wow moment of the 2,324 wow moments on this tour. Modern Marco Polo. We didn't know it before we left home, but we were on a trade mission. We should have known, because by traveling with the Chamber of Commerce, they naturally would bring us to places where we would be tempted to buy. If I could provide a verb that best describes how much I like to shop, hate comes to mind. But there I was, following a group of keen and enthusiastic modern Marco Polos attempting to negotiate with the shrewd and cunning Chinese. The Chinese Academy of Traditional Chinese Medicine. We were taken to a world-renowned producer of Chinese medicine, where Dr. Tu Yu, a receiver of the Nobel laureate in medicine in December of 2015, has her office. I was being assessed by Dr. Ah Chu, a flu specialist, as my feet were being massaged in hot water. I knew we were in hot water the moment we entered the academy. By being put in this situation made it impossible for any of us to leave, because they had our shoes. After the kind Dr. Chu determined quite accurately my condition, he advised me that if I didn't remove the fat around my liver, that I would die. I was about to empty my wallet when a voice came down from above, my left ear. It was my wife, Carole, who said no, and that was that. It was too high pressure, and while it had merits worth exploring, as it definitely is a change from the pill-prescribing Western way, it was too big a decision to make in a short time. Luckily, I had a nurse, Carole, with me to provide her medical insight and assurance that my life was not in jeopardy. She has since put more life insurance on me, and I don't know why. Calligraphy workshop. People with skill and patience abound in a place like this. I enjoyed myself, but the artists didn't think my stickmen had much artistic merit. The tea ceremony. I never used to drink tea, but started about 6 months ago. I had no idea that so many teas could do so many things for you. We rented a barge to bring the tea we purchased over from China, but I did bring on the plane a nice teacup that when heated displays a concubine, while Carole brought a respectfully tasteful cup. I have since partially melted my cup in the dishwasher, which makes my lady look like a Genghis Khan than a concubine. The National Embroidery Institute, I have to admit the work that is done here is unbelievable, especially when an artist creates 2 different designs, one on each side of the same piece of material. I don't know if the artists that create this art are recognized and whether they become famous, as some artists do in our part of the world, but if they don't, they should be. The pearl factory. The skill of pearl production has been perfected by the Chinese. The shop provided a particularly comfortable retail venue, including sections dividing expensive pearls from even more expensive pearls. John and I had to choose where we would sit while the ladies shopped for pearls. We chose to sit at the Chinese sake bar. It turned out to be a fine choice in spite of being morning. The Shanghai Silk Factory. Shanghai was our last city to visit, and by now I was getting tired of shopping, so I stayed outside. I put my foot down and insisted that Carole not spend any more money on stuff. When I came in, she had purchased a silk bed cover. I said to her, "You know that I put my foot down." She said, "It's not down, it's silk." Well, we sleep under a silk cover now, and I must admit it's pretty nice. Street vendors. I've never felt good about squeezing someone who is etching to make a living selling stuff on the street that I could live without. I see no great pleasure in announcing how low I got that poor man to drop his price. Some may want to believe that these vendors are rich and it's all about an act, but I don't think so. That being said, and being a man of contradictions, I watched the great negotiators in our group and was determined to do as good, if not better, than them just for kicks. I watched the likes of Mr. Brame, Morris, Violet, and Jerry work their magic at getting the best price. I witnessed Kennedy struggle with the reality that there were no needs, just wants. With the study of the great buyers in our group complete, I was finally ready. I was approached by Low Life, a street vendor selling genuine, authentic replicas of Rolex watches. He wanted $10, but I knew that those buying before me were able to buy them for $5, so I said $4. Low said that in Chinese culture, 4 is bad. 4 is very bad. How about 5, I said, knowing that he would take it because the great buyers in our group had already established that price. Instead, Lowe said, 5 can be bad. 5 can be very bad. What would you suggest? 8. 8 is very good. I would suggest 8. 8 means prosperity. 8 means prosperity. 8 is very good. 8 is very good. So I can have the watch for $8? No. You give me $28 and you have double prosperity. You have double prosperity. I gave him $28 for a genuine, authentic replica of a Rolex watch, but when I took it out of the package, it didn't work. So I ran back to Lowlife. He wasn't there, but his partner, Sleazy, was. So I showed him that the watch didn't work. He said, "It doesn't work because it is stuck at 8 minutes to 8, and this is very lucky. You don't want it to move because this will bring you much luck. It will bring you much luck." I thanked Sleazy for the watch and proudly walked away with my new watch. I keep it in a drawer at home because it doesn't work. It doesn't work. And so it goes as the group from the Morinville Chamber of Commerce went to China and all returned safely, having a new appreciation for the ancient Chinese culture and their long history, their unique way of life, as well as their friendship and hospitality.